Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video. She's sitting this one out. We're going to talk about that DC comic book writer, Gretchen Felker-Martin. I don't know why I kept wanting to call them Gretchen Wieners, but they got fired for calling Charlie Kirk a Nazi. And, all the dominoes kind of fell over, and then they decided they're going to cancel the Red Hood series they were doing. They're offering refunds. DC Comics is offering refunds on those comics, and now this writer is doubling down. A lot of people in the comic book industry are supporting them, and we've got a couple of former DC Comics writers, including Chuck Dixon, coming out and saying, "Hey, this isn't cool. Shouldn't do this." We're going to talk about that. But really, I think the bigger thing that's actually going on here, and we saw this, I did a video yesterday talking about Rolling Stone and talking about all these companies trying to basically, purge a lot of far left activists from their companies now because of, especially because of what's happened in the last week, but mostly because they're losing money. And this isn't getting set well with middle America now. Gretchen here got a call apparently from a Warner Brothers executive. It wasn't a DC Comics person. And this is just a theory. This is one of my tinfoil hat theories. I think what is potentially going on is that they're looking to sell Warner Brothers to Paramount Skydance, that they're going to merge. It's going to be Paramount, Warner Brothers, Skydance or something. And you can't have all the headlines out there being, hey, Batman adjacent writer is calling people Nazis and wishing for death and wishing for harm. I think the winds are definitely changing. Middle America, corporate America is not having it anymore, and they're trying to get rid of these people because they're a liability. Even if they're kidding, even if they're joking, when you're making all kinds of jokes about people getting killed or making worse, making lists about people who should be next, it's kind of hard to keep them on payroll, right? Especially if the FBI comes knocking. And, I said this before, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens should the FBI designate Antifa as a terrorist group, because a couple of years ago, it was very fashionable if you were in the comic book industry to throw a bunch of Antifa stuff in your timeline. If you were on Twitter, put the flag. There were several creators out there that had the flags in their bios for Antifa. And I'm like, you better hope that doesn't come back to bite you in the butt. And I'm thinking it might. I'm just a thought. You might want to if you're working in the comic book industry, you might want to just work on your comics, right? You might want to just work on your comic book projects. Nobody's going to comic book writers or artists and looking for their opinions on geopolitical issues. I'm just saying, nobody cares except you and your peers. So anyway, we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com and sign up for our free newsletter. You will get notified when we post new videos. You can also go out and check for videos you might have missed elsewhere. We do have paywalled content. We're working on a plan to ramp that up over there as well. But you don't have to. You don't have to pay for that. You can just sign up for free and get notified. This was actually a couple of days ago, talking about the Warner Brothers and Paramount merger, the rumored merger. It seems like it's there's a pretty good chance they're at least going to make a bid, from my understanding, and I think that is factoring into what is going on now. I don't think Warner Brothers can take a chance with a lot of these people at DC Comics, because the last thing you need is for these people to go out there and cause you negative headlines when you're trying to close a deal. I'm just saying, it's called curbside appeal, people. Curbside appeal. You got to look good. You got to look squeaky clean. You got to look like, this is a goodbye and not goodbye because your people are batshit. But, Paramount was in a not very good place either. We had a lot of the Star Trek actors out there making smarmy comments, including Tim Russ, making comments about Charlie Kirk, and then William Shatner had to kind of slap him down, which is kind of funny. But let's take a look at this first. This comes from Fox News. Again, these are the headlines they're trying to avoid. DC comic book writer says no regrets after her Charlie Kirk post led to cancellation of Batman spinoff. Gretchen Felker-Martin called Kirk a Nazi biatch after the assassination. Now they're doubling down. We're going to go out to see what Chuck Dixon has to say. Chuck Dixon, who has written a lot more Batman than Gretchen has ever written or will ever write, because I don't think Gretchen is ever going to write Batman again. DC Comics has canceled its Batman spinoff Red Hood after the series writer mocked the assassination of Charlie Kirk, sparking outrage online. Despite the fallout, the writer has since doubled down. Yes, and many other people in the comic book industry are cheering them on. They're agreeing. And like I said, it's going to be really interesting. If they start turning over that log to see how many termites are actually in the log. But the comic book industry right now, the mainstream comic book industry, I would say is very far left for the most part. There are a lot of people that are activists. There are some people that I've been friends with for years that I thought were more middle of the road, and I had to unfollow them on Facebook because their entire timeline was just taking a steaming shit on everything conservative. And, especially Kirk and anybody who tried to defend Kirk. And there was no middle ground. It was like, yeah, I think murder's wrong, except in this case. I'm like, no. No. So yeah, the comic book industry is very infected. If you've read comics lately, you would know the political leanings of most of the people in the comic book industry. And this is why so many people have been pushed out of comics, including Chuck Dixon, who was openly conservative and was actually one of the most successful Batman writers of the 1990s. Like, he had a fantastic career. And then, when all the politics started getting into it, he wasn't allowed to work at DC anymore because they're overrun with a bunch of Gretchens. So anyway, back to the article. They said the series was canceled by DC Comics after screenshots circulated online of inflammatory social media posts from transgender author Gretchen Felker-Martin making a joke out of the death of Charlie Kirk. A spokesperson for DC Comics confirmed that the entire Red Hood series had been canceled, including both existing and future orders. Sellers were reportedly invited to return any issues they already received. If it made you mad, you can send it back. 2 days ago, I made a glib joke about Kirk's death. It was irresistible. I'm sorry, I didn't say irresponsible. It was irresistible to me. Martin wrote on her Patreon blog in response to the fallout, I stand by the sentiment of what I said. Kirk was evil. He can no longer hurt us, even if his cruelty will linger like a bad smell for decades to come. Well, I think it's going to get worse for these people. I'm going to be honest. The backlash has been severe, and there have been a lot of people on the left that I never in a million years would have thought would have publicly condemned the act, including, I'm looking over here, Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis, who has a trans child, was even like, this is a horrible, horrible thing to do. So, they were like, oh yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis is a trans ally. And she's even like, yeah, this was reprehensible. This is a horrible thing. She actually broke down in tears on a podcast about how horrible it was that this guy died in front of his kids and his wife. So I think in a lot of ways it's going to get worse. And I think a lot of these companies are going to purge these people because they're like, if you're signing off on murder and you think that's cool, I don't want you working here. Felker-Martin added in an interview with the Comics Journal, she had no regrets for what she said. I've listened to Charlie Kirk being an overt Nazi for years of my life, and I had no regrets for what I said about him. So yeah, this is apparently Felker-Martin has been stirring the pot on social media. A lot of these people do. And I'm going to say, ask Mags Visaggio how that worked out for them, because Mags Visaggio used to openly call for violence against people and used to just overshare their opinions. And it wasn't just political opinions. It was like every little thing Mags was doing, they had to go out to social media, share it, make a big deal about it, whatever. Nobody's calling Mags. Mags has to literally, this is where Mags is at right now. Mags has to beg for money on, via GoFundMe or whatever, tips or whatever, because Mags made themselves completely unemployable because nobody wants to work with an asshole. It doesn't matter if you're trans or cis or whatever, gay, straight, whatever. Nobody wants to work with a raging asshole and potentially a psychopath. Again, if you're fetishizing violence constantly on social media, nobody's going to want to work with you. I wouldn't want to work with you. I'd be like, I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your sexual identity is. If you're going to be making comments about hurting people, and you're only half joking, I don't want you working for me, right? So this is DC's statement. Then we'll go out to Chuck Dixon, who actually did work for DC for years and got pushed out simply for being conservative in, a company that apparently doesn't want any conservatives in it anymore. DC Comics, we place the highest value on our creators and community and affirm the right to peaceful individual expression of personal viewpoints. Posts or public comments that can be viewed as promoting hostility or violence or inconsistent with DC's standards of conduct. They needed to rein these people in 5 or 10 years ago. Because again, all the Comicsgate drama, all that stuff started back in like 2017, 2018, when these people were allowed to make comments like this while working for DC and Marvel, and it went unchecked, right? Fandom Pulse has kind of a rundown of some of the other comic book people. And look, this is actually very, very common. I have Roxanne Gay has me blocked. I don't even know who the hell Roxanne Gay is, but they have me blocked. But, this is a really, really common sight for anyone who follows a lot of comic book people, because it's almost like the switch got flipped in 2016, 2017 because of the election. But we had a whole bunch of people who were following. Like I said, I had to go through and clean up my Facebook timeline because I'm like, everybody out there, every other post is about this. And, I'm like, guys, I'm telling you right now, these companies, they're going to go through and they're going to get rid of you because you're liability. You're going to cost them business. And in this economy, you can't afford to lose any readers. And that's all they've done. The activists that are working in comics, like, it's activism first, and they've done nothing but lose readers for the last, decade or so. What is this? Wait, this person says Comicsgate ran wild for years. Did they? Nurtured by people in comics. Did they? Because they should have known better. They're still going on about that. And that was like 2017, 2018. So here's Chuck Dixon. This is again coming from Fandom Pulse. Let's see. What did he say? He said he spoke out against the ghouls who are saying horrific things about Charlie Kirk with a powerful statement on Facebook. And I'm sure he got slammed for it by a lot of his former coworkers. He said, if you're celebrating the death of anyone, you do need help, even if it's just a reasonable friend to help you see how wrong gleefully posting about a murder is. The same for equivocating about it. All the "but what about" remarks are just as toxic, and expecting forgiveness for believing a lie you were told because you so fervently wished it was true is also a moral failing. You can disagree with me and have a perfectly sane reason for doing so. You can also be a wackadoodle, batshit crazy, and be speaking the truth. But so much of the behavior I saw this week is inexcusable, and those who participated in it need counseling of some kind. Yeah, I had to unfollow people. I have followed for 10 years, 15 years. A lot of them work in the comic book industry. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It's like, you know what? You guys are allowed to bitch when, Trump got reelected. That's your right. You didn't like the guy, whatever, bitch about whatever. But for me, and I think a lot of other people that are kind of middle of the road, the line has been crossed when you're actually openly celebrating murder and, in worst case scenarios, calling for more. Yeah, I'm sorry. At this point, like, these companies are going to do what they got to do to save their reputation. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. There it is. It's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is if, I think there's a change in ownership, and then they have a reason, just like Rolling Stone, to get rid of a bunch of people, which I highly suspect that they will. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later. For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.